Okay. Record is on.
Cool. Yeah, why don't you get started just introducing me about your background, your story into startups. Yeah, I would love to hear more about you, and then I can give you a brief on myself as well and what we could help you.
Yeah. Firstly, thanks for reaching out to me to have a call to discuss about technology and startups in general. My name is Manh. I love building tech startups, and I've been doing this for several years. I think my first startup was 7 years ago, and everything I do it revolves around 3D technology, graphics, game, real-time rendering. Um, yeah, so that's basically about myself. I love building startups and building cool tech, 3D tech. Yeah.
Cool. No, just curious. What was your first touch point with startup? Like in high school, did you like see some successful founders, hear some stories, or what inspired you to start your own company and drop out?
Oh, well, I just do it. 7 years ago, nobody talks about startup. Nobody even wants to start any kind of business themselves. Um, Generally, people in Vietnam want to have a steady job, study, and do something that has, a clear pathway for life. So, like, you want something easy to understand, safe. So, yeah, at that time, I didn't think much. I just want to realize my idea, my dream. So, having that in mind, I just kept continuing to yeah. And then I actually have to learn all about the startup and what the market has been talking about startups, and I find it a little bit different with my idea as well. So in the ecosystem, I just try to meet more people, but I haven't really got into participating in the startup ecosystem. So I've been both an outsider and insider, I think. Um, yeah, I just love doing things that inspiring to me. So I started with what I like, with my passion. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, like, why would you think of startup as a route when you said that no one else around is doing it? And if it's a passion, say like 3D rendering, why would you join like Unity or join like a bigger company and learn those skills before you start something else?
Yeah. Actually, before committing myself into full-time startups like now, I actually joined several companies, both Vietnamese tech company and global tech startups, innovative startup as well, including AI, machine learning, 3D. So I eventually have to start my own company because I want to build something that can utilize myself, my experience, and my technical ability, which I'm confident about. Yeah, to really utilize all those things to build something very groundbreaking and something big. I dream big. I want to build something big, and I've been accumulating experiences, accumulating uh, technology, knowledge, and then build something as well. So the path of my startup was, up and downs. And then once I realized I have to use all of these to make something. So that's when I'm even more focused in building startups. So I've been through different jobs, different companies, and I'm not satisfied with the quality and the requirements that people set in their company. It's kind of low. So I want to create something new, something great, something, uh, above the limits. So yeah, it's the reason for me to just continue building my own companies in that way.
Cool. Yeah, that's inspiring to hear. I mean, a lot of people that we work with come from business background, and it's less common to have that building mentality because all we can really make is pitch decks and think of cool ideas. But yeah, I think a lot of technical people that we talk to have that builder mindset and builder like hustler phrasing in them, which is awesome. Maybe I'll share a bit about me and like UpYouth in general, why we reached out. UpYouth was founded in 2020, and I think in short, our mission is quite simple: is to create more young Vietnamese founders. Our Brian, who started the organization, he went to school in the U.S. And it's something that I also see is people from a very young age are encouraged to find their startup, and it's like a normal route to build something of their own in the US. And they're given all the resources they need from a very young age to succeed. And that's not the case in Vietnam. Maybe the most exposure to startups that Vietnamese students have is through like competitions where they think of a new idea, like a business model, they pitch, get a prize, and then that's the end of the day. But no one really, or not a lot of people will actually take that next step to launch and then talk to users and go to market. So that's what we're trying to do with UpYouth. We try to bring the best resources for young founders to start their startup. That's why we created an incubator program. So they can join, have mentorship from the top VCs and top like founders in the ecosystem, have access to like, supporting packages, stock credits, etc. So all the resources they need. I think that's been like decent for the past 3 years. We have some successful founders who have gone on to raise like venture rounds. One of our founder recently raised $1 million from a big Singaporean VC fund. But I think from running incubator in the past 3 years, we realized that there's not a lot of founder-ready talent out there. And realized that the problem in the market, it's really about educating the market. How do we get more people interested in startup? How do we get more people to consider startup as a potential career route rather than like go join a big tech firm or consulting or banking? That's the new problem that we're trying to solve, is how do we get, or how do we educate the market? So that's a bit about UpYouth. Feel free to ask any questions or dig deeper into all those points.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I think you guys are doing something quite difficult. It's comparable to start your own startup that way. Because we're turning your 0 to 1, right? We're making something out of nothing. Yeah. So congratulations that you have been through, the journey so far. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I think we're still pretty early on. We're testing a lot of products still and trying to find ways for like what's the most optimal products to scale and make entrepreneurship accessible to more people. Like one of the problems that we face is that our target audience has mainly been like business people, because that's traditionally, if you know about startups, they usually know about the through Shark Tank or like startup competitions. So we didn't really understand what the perspective of a tech builder was. That's why in the past few years we've been working to make our incubator more inclusive of tech builders, as well as think of new product ideas like Build Street, where it's a co-working session every week where we bring in like builders, hackers, coders, like, and creatives to come in and just work on their passion project. That's what we've been trying to do to tap more types of people, because we do believe that founders come from everywhere. Like there's talents from every walks of life and every niche. So that's some of the progress that we've been working on for the past few years.
I'm wondering about the geography of UpYouth. Are you Vietnamese focused or global or Southeast Asia?
Yeah, so our mission is just to create more young Vietnamese founders. And in the first 2 years, most of our founders are located in Vietnam. We had one in like Hong Kong, one in France, but that's not the majority of our founders. However, we do see that there's a big talent pool that's studying abroad. Either studying in the US and they are returning home to Vietnam after a few years, returning to Vietnam after graduating. So we're looking to finding ways to serve Vietnamese elsewhere as well. But the goal is, again, to serve young Vietnamese founders in hopes that they return to Vietnam and build something back home.
Okay. My suggestion is that focus on one geography, because starting up somewhere is very different from somewhere. So, for example, what I can understand about the U.S. system is that they have everything in every sector, and they encourage the entrepreneurial journey as well. To actually start in Vietnam, you may have some very cool ideas, but in order to learn about it and to be starting in that is even hard to find experts to talk to in that sector. So I think that Vietnamese market is very young in all kind of sectors, not just startups. So I'm not sure how to create how to make a startup as a career for anyone here. It's very hard to do it that way. Even the investors, the VC, are still learning. They have struggles in investing in our region and nearby regions as well. So Southeast Asia is very new, and Vietnam would face similar problems with even Singapore or Malaysia, Indonesia. I think that the reason that most funds and most startups are backed from Singapore and by Singaporean is that they have a really good financial system for investors to invest there in terms of law, policy, and infrastructure for moving money and then investing, and also education. I think that is the most important reason why they believe that Singaporean is the brightest ecosystem for startup right now. But it's not all. It's not all aspect. Like I said, in terms of administration, tools for investor and startup, business registration, something like that, company operations, services is way better in Singapore than other countries, right? I'm not sure, have you registered any business in Vietnam and try to operate a Vietnamese company? But the workflow is very different, right? So that is one of the reasons too. But what I mean is, in Southeast Asia, you would have chances to start a startup everywhere. It's kind of young after all. So, Vietnam is quite interesting, but in general, everything is very new.
I want to bring this conversation more micro-focused. I think there's a lot of macro factor that affects how Vietnam is more disadvantaged to find a company. But I think for what UpYouth is trying to do, like we can't solve those problems, right? We can't make the regulations or make it easier to find companies or make it easier for investors. What we try to do is to create or make entrepreneurship more accessible and just more common. And I think one of your posts mentioned about how, talents need a very specific types of an environment to thrive. Can you elaborate on what were some of the problems you first faced when you started your company, and what do you think that environment would look like that would help you?
Okay, great questions. Actually, I'm solving the human resources problem as well, because the only way to have great companies in Vietnam is to have great people building it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just me who knows how to build something and keep doing everything. I need to be able to onboard new people, develop them, make them a talent. So really, my goal is to create more talents in Vietnam, and then maybe someday those talents will sit together and build $1 billion company. Yeah. Okay. So people is very important in any organization. You cannot create an innovative company by using normal people, because they think differently, they work differently, and if each individual in that company fails to transform themselves, then the company will be the same as any company that anyone can create, and most of the time it will fail as a new business because of the risk of starting new business. It's very hard. So that's why I know that creating talents is very important. Yeah. So just focus more on education, special education, like teaching people things that the majority of market wouldn't know, or encourage them to focus on very difficult problems that even professor would shake heads and basically give up. So that will create talents, because
Can you actually elaborate on what would that look like more specifically? Like teaching them things that they're not teaching, what does that mean? Giving them hard problems, what does that really mean? Just elaborate on those points.
okay, technology. So if you like cool stuff, you would try to build something cool. So I like working with people who have ideas, but they basically haven't had the knowledge, but they have the drive, the passion to solve that problem. So I would guide them on their journey. So this is what technical field that you need to dive into. You need to be able to learn by yourself, because no one else is teaching you. You need to be able to define the problem, research, and then implement your own way. So my groups and my communities right now are very technical focused, and I expect the people there would develop enormously by working on their own problem and by themselves. So the independence in working, independence in development. So they would not need anyone else to teach them or help them build something. They would need to be able to build it themselves. And that includes step by step, but it's their step to do. So I don't believe in external factors that can change the people. It has to happen with that person, and that person would only progress if he or she has a purpose, and then over time it accumulates, and then compounding all of the experience, life experience, and the things. So creating a new kind of talent, a new kind of workflow and mindset, and basically it's like a life journey. To create that for another person is very hard, but it has to start anyway. So that's what I'm trying to
do. Can you actually talk more about that group? Like, who are those people? How do you meet them? What is special about them? What are you trying to do with them?
Yeah, my industry is IT, so I just have chances to meet university students, software engineering students, And what I do is I spot the black sheep. Yeah, if someone wanting to start something, they always stand out from the crowd, from their idea, from how they talk, maybe how they appear in public as well. So I kind of had a way to talk with them, share with their ideas, and then include them in the conversation, and then develop the
What do they
relationship.
look like?
Sorry.
What do they look like? What makes them black sheep?
Yeah,
What's special?
it would be hard to describe because each community in each locations has different cultures, right? For example, students from Hanoi is different from students from Ho Chi Minh City, and then Da Nang City and other places. The easiest way to spot a black sheep is to look for white sheep. Once you see the white sheep, because it's easier to see the common people, right? And then once you see a black sheep walks in, it's him or it's her, yeah. So look for white sheep, you see the black sheep. That is one easy way to do.
And then what do you do with them?
We talk with them, and then we educate them to solve their own problems. Most of the time, they already have something they want to do, but maybe they get stuck, or maybe they find it hard. So creating motivation, and they feel the progress, because once you have progress, you would try more, and you have more motivation, and you would pick the harder problem next time you solve. So something like that. So very micro step, but impactful, and it would take a lot of time. So the people that I know and I work with, it's been several years as well. They have their own progress and journey. This is why you cannot have great startups very early in Vietnam, and we're still very early. So to actually have a fully formed company that can actually survive and compete with the market is extremely difficult. Because basically, when you start a startup, you're competing with everyone else, with traditional business, with your potential competitors, and your competitors in the future as well. So this is a very extremely difficult journey. So I'm not sure the young, would choose to do it, or even if they choose, I'm not sure what will happen tomorrow. Would they quit after facing roadblocks and challenges? No one knows. But basically, I try to warn people to stay away from startups because it's too difficult. So yeah.
Interesting. I think when you mentioned about them all having their problems to solve, like you're talking the startup ideas, right? And then they're getting stuck. Or what does that look like?
Not really startup ideas. Like I said, I don't encourage people to start startups, but the problem that they want to solve is just something they're genuinely interested in. For example, intellectual topics. So they want to solve some hard problem in science, computer science, algorithms, but the difficulty would be way more than what they learn in school. Something like that. So yeah, I find people who want to excel, who want to be better, who want to be someone else and be very smart, very capable, and that is one potential you need to be able to be a founder. But that's not all, because that's just technical ability. In order to run a startup, you need way more.
I was going to say that after helping a lot of founders in our batch, they usually come from either a technical background or a business background. The technical people are like what you described. They think that startup has to be some very hard problem, very like some new technical innovation, right? So that's all they're obsessed about, is like what the idea looks like. without really understanding what the true problem they're trying to solve. Whereas startups, you're trying to actually come to the problem first and you think of a solution for it, right? And then the business people, they try to think methodologically that, okay, like we go talk to customers, here's how I'm going to price, here's how I'm going to do a business model. But they don't have that technical ability. So there's a big gap within our past 2 years of how do we connect these two types of people together. Because I don't think that at this stage, there are not a lot of builders, like the technical builders, who have that like holistic understanding of business as well. I don't know if you agree with your experience or not, but what do you think about that statement?
Yeah, so logically, people would say that in order to start a startup, you need a technical founder or business founder. I doubt that because
Okay.
because these like startup template, I don't know where they got it from. Maybe some incubator and accelerator in the past, or there was a way that making people understand what is startup right now, right? And the state of the ecosystem right now is that we are questioning that again, like what is actually a good way to start a startup in Southeast Asia. Because you cannot use a template from YC or US company or even Singaporean company to apply it in Vietnam, yeah, and vice versa. So I'm not sure it is a good way to connect those people, and is that the right problem to solve? Because most of the time people fail is because they pick the wrong problem to solve and they cannot solve them, or the problem doesn't matter enough. So the key startup failure is also no market need or no revenue, clients wouldn't use or something. Is that that problem doesn't matter. So that's my perspective. So for UpYouth, I think it would be very hard to actually create a startup culture that way. I think you guys should consider helping more young people to figure out their own problem and figure out their life journey. And yeah, instead of drawing more people to startups, because when we try to tell people to do something very new, they'll try to invent new things and they would make mistakes. That's normal, right? Because everything is new. But the thing here is when people see a lot of mistakes, yeah, many of them would not try again, and it will create bad images for other people to look at, and they would develop an image in their mind that starting a startup is not worthy. So gradually we will have less and less startups when trying to make more people interested in startups, because there is a fact that we cannot change, that the failure rate of any new business and startup in particular is way high. 99%, I would say, or 90%. So if you cannot accept failures, and if the majority of people face a lot of failures, it would create distractions in societies, and then things like that. So it's very hard to make startup mainstream. I think it's the opposite way. Startup will never go mainstream, and it should stay like a part of the culture, and only a small group of people who actually pull through. And then once we have more example of successful companies in Vietnam, then people can they may think about starting startup again. But right now, I think not a lot of people who have faith in startup. They would not believe that once they set up a business or even a traditional business, right? So it would be very hard to make startup mainstream.
I think that's an interesting take. I think there's many ways that we can define startup, and I think that we're approaching it differently. If we look at the United States, for example, right? One, it's somewhat ingrained in their culture that entrepreneurship is a thing.
Right.
So I think there is a big difference between what you're referring to, which is like just building a startup, and having an entrepreneurial mindset. Right? I think it doesn't hurt people to have an entrepreneurship mindset. I think it's better for society. Which brings me to point number 2 about if you think that there should be less people exposed to startup and failing and then having like failed cases, will we ever move away from a culture of risk aversion, or will we always be, Vietnamese where we don't like risk, we want to keep things safe? So when will innovation happen in that case, right? How I think that we're approaching it is, say there's a 0.001% of people who will become founders. So if we have 100 people interested, then we wouldn't have one founder. But what if we have like 10,000 people, 100,000 people? That's just a thought, which it's from, I was listening to a podcast from Steve Manh. He's like the father of modern entrepreneurship. He founded 8 startups and he like teaches at Stanford. And he was talking about, or he drew parallel about how music, arts, sports is introduced in a school's curriculum and kind of forces every kid to go through it. 99% of the kids hate it, like they probably won't stick to like playing sports for a career or music for a career. But there'll be that one kid that's like, hey, like this is something that can be a career, like can I actually do this for life? I'm interested in this, right? So I think there's always going to be that percentage. So the problem is, how do we maximize that reach? How do we make entrepreneurship known as a career? You don't have to start a startup. Everyone doesn't have to start a startup. It should be known so that more people, so that it does have that 0.01% that is interested in startup. That's my take on why we want to expand entrepreneurship reach. I think it's a bit different from your interpretation of getting people into startup.
Yeah, because I apply reverse thinking and reverse psychology. What you approach the problem is more logical, but I would encourage you to think it backwards. So that could be your homework to do, and to to know what you should do in UpYouth, and I'll be happy to discuss more on that with you. But the one thing I find it interesting in your sharing is that is actually very effective to expose people to a lot of different topics. For example, arts, music, because it forces you to shift your perspective in order to learn arts. And then you have to develop a new thinking to learn sports again, and then another topic. So this is very crucial from my point of view for a startup founder to be able to, become better, because you need to learn a lot. You need to become better in a very short amount of time to be able to become a great competitor. So one of the weaknesses in Vietnamese people I see is that they too focus on one skills. So that's why business people, they think that they would be good just focusing on business, and technical people, they think they would be well enough to, just focusing on technical ability, and then they lack everything else. That is one problem. So I think, that's how it could be helpful to expose people in different topics, and then see how they perform, and then see how they can, be a better person. Once the ability aligns, you may start a startup, you may not, but eventually you will become very successful in what you do. So I think, a great example when you share.
No,
about the story. Yeah.
I think I appreciate that reframing a lot. I think reframing it to, like you said, helping people, exposing people to different things in life and helping them solve the problem they enjoy doing. It's back to that point, right? So I think that's an interesting reframe that you did. Would love to, meet people that you're working with or see what it looks like in the background of what you guys are doing to see like whether it's helpful, whether it's actually being impact or not. Yeah, it's been interesting. I know that I took 10 minutes more of your time than I asked for, but it's been a good conversation.
Yeah, it's great sharing with you too, and I learned a lot about your thinking and your motivation to solve this in UpYouth as well, and I appreciate your sharing as well. So yeah, hope to speak with you again, and yeah, let's keep connected and share with me any ideas that you have. Yeah, I'm interested.
Awesome.